So incontinence is the involuntary loss of urine. So unless you want urine to come out of you and it's coming out of you, sorry, if it's coming out of you when you don't want it to, that would be considered incontinence, and it's something you want to get on top of. Releasing tension, paying attention to your posture and breath, and also doing pelvic floor exercise. So many people, the first time they hear the term Kegel exercises or Kegels is while they're pregnant. And Kegels are a form of pelvic floor exercise. And it's important to be able to learn how to connect with the pelvic floor and what a Kegel actually is. So Kegel is sort of is a coming together, like a closing of those openings. Then there's a gentle drawing up motion, and then there's a release. I like to think of a jellyfish. So if you can imagine a jellyfish is softly floating in the ocean, that would be sort of like a relaxed pelvic floor. And then when it wants to propel up to the surface of the ocean, the edges come together and it lifts up and then it softens again. So we can take that imagery and apply it to the pelvic floor when we are doing our Kegel exercises. So when we inhale, we want to think about relaxing, expanding, almost like those points on that diamond are broadening, are lengthening away from one another. And then when we exhale,
sorry to interrupt, I've never heard the jellyfish analogy before, and I find that so helpful.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite. People send me jellyfish things all the time because I talk about it all the time. But and then on the exhalation, that's when you would voluntarily activate your pelvic floor. So think about the points of the diamond coming together and lifting up into the center, and then you want to make sure you let go. So especially when we're pregnant, we really actually want to focus more on the letting go than on the activation. We need strength, but almost more importantly, we need suppleness. We need that pelvic floor to be able to respond and by relaxing and letting go of tension. One final tip I'm going to mention is with regards to postpartum recovery in the abdominal wall. A lot of people will come to me and ask, how do I get my abs back? Or how do I heal my abdominal wall? How do I strengthen my core? And the internet created a little bit of a frenzy around the term diastasis recti or diastases, DRA, you may see it referred to. And this is considered a normal response to pregnancy. And it's not because it's normal, it doesn't mean that we just are going to disregard it. But I want to take a little bit of the fear out of it. Just to give you a quick illustration of what's happening, here are the two six-pack muscles. Your rectus abdominis. This is the pelvis. There's that pubic joint at the front. We have a band of connective tissue in the midline called the linea alba. That's it means white line. And some of you may, when you're pregnant, may have noticed or may notice now that that band turns a bit brown. It's a connective tissue that holds the rectus in place, never fused together. There is always a gap there. And when our belly is growing and the connective tissue is thinning, sometimes the rectus will shift away further away from the midline than where they were before. What's challenging is the term diastasis recti means separation of the rectus, but we always have a separation of the rectus. And we don't even know, because a lot of people find out about it after pregnancy, we don't know what our distance was beforehand. So maybe what you're measuring after giving birth is actually the same as what you had before. We don't know. And no research has ever determined what is considered normal interrecti distance either. So I want to take a little bit of the desire to close the gap or fix diastasis, change the terminology, and we can heal the abdominal wall. We can regain strength and function in our pelvic, in our core. But we don't want to focus so much on the gap. It's actually the integrity of that connective tissue. This connective tissue here. And how we generate tension in there is actually through the pelvic floor. So when we again can optimize the function and the capacity of our muscles to contract and relax, that helps tension that connective tissue and is our very first restorative exercise once we give birth. So that will help strengthen your core. It will help heal the abdominal wall. And obviously, from a pelvic floor perspective, it will help retrain the muscles. They're the foundation of the core, the pelvic floor is. So as soon as we're optimizing and working that, we are working our core.